you mean to tell me that there's finally another great animated movie this year? One I actually got to see far earlier than most people. Heck, this might be the first review in all of YouTube of this movie. Today is a good day. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station. This is for anything and everything animation, including TVs and movies as well. I am your host, Jackson Small, and yes, welcome to this very early review of the Garfield movie. I was not expecting to review this movie until the 24th when it actually comes out, but lucky me, just like Saving Bikini Bottom, which I'm hoping to review next month if Nickelodeon can just stop freaking wasting time and drop it on Netflix already. Which I also got to see early. I got to see this one early too, even earlier than I did that other one. And yeah, this was a pleasant surprise. Like, I can't really put it into words without some kind of script, and this might be one of the longest written reviews I've ever typed out, because I wanted to be as descriptive as possible. I wanted to set the scene as perfectly as possible so you understand my point of view. Now don't worry, no spoilers, so Sony will hopefully not come after me for this. So this is a bit of a risk. I don't know if Sony will or won't take this down despite it being spoiler free, but we shall wait and see. But hopefully some of you will get to see it before it gets pulled, if it does get pulled. So yeah. Without further ado, I have a lot to say about this movie, and don't worry, again, spoiler free. There's no spoilers in this review. So let's not waste any more time and dive straight into my very long, lengthy written review. I hope you guys enjoy. It's always a good day when I get to see a new movie early. First was Saving Bikini Bottom, which I'm hoping to review next month, and now I've actually managed to snag an early showing of the brand new animated Garfield movie. But don't worry, there's no spoilers in this review, so Sony, please don't come after me. Initially, like most, I was a bit hesitant about this one. It didn't look bad per se, but from the trailer, it just kind of looked like another generic modern kids movie. And knowing Sony's pretty abysmal track record with their animated films, I didn't have my hopes too high. And Pratt's casting as Garfield didn't really help much. Honestly, I just thought about skipping it altogether like I planned to do with Transformers 1. Yeah, I'm skipping Transformers 1 because I watched the trailer and it looks really bad, so skipping that one. But I did really love this one's animation style and how surprisingly faithful it looked in terms of design to the original comic strips of Garfield from way back in the day. So against my better judgment, I decided to watch and review it anyway. And may I just say that I'm glad that I did so? Because I'm happy to report that not only was this not a pile of boring mediocrity or not a steaming pile of crap, but was actually genuinely fun. Honestly, I can't believe I'm saying this, and hopefully some of you will understand this comparison I'm about to make, but it's a 2020s decade version of the Peanuts movie. No, it's not as amazing as that one, absolutely not. But what it is that it's a genuinely excellent animated movie that pays respect to its source material, while simultaneously being very entertaining for not just kids but adults as well, in all honesty. Sure, it's not perfect, but I was genuinely impressed with how much I actually enjoyed this one. Pros: amazing animation. That's this movie's biggest pro right there. The animation of this movie is amazing. It looked amazing in the trailer, and it looks even better in the final product. It is fantastic animation that recaptures the signature art style pretty much perfectly, while also being flexible and fluid. I know that may sound a bit weird to say about animation, but for those of you that know about animation, specifically when you make it super cartoony, you'll understand what I mean here. As I can get this thing off of my screen so I can read. Mostly pretty good voice acting from a cast that sounds like they're having a great time. Like, the voice acting was surprisingly very good here, especially the guy that plays John. I forget his name, but he does a really good job in this movie, and he did a really good job actually recapturing the character, which surprised me. Surprisingly very good writing. Like, the writing of this movie is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. A touching story about family that genuinely pulls on the heartstrings at times. I know a lot of animated films try to do this, but trust me when I say this is one of the few that actually pulls it off really well. And you will feel emotion. Great characters who are full of personality, like Odie, John, Garfield, they're pretty much one for one their normal selves. There's no tampering, there's no changing. Like, they are pretty much exactly how you expect them to be. And heck, even some of the new characters in here are great. Like, the villain, which I'll get to shortly. I love the villain in this movie. And the dad character, like, great characters. Like, yes, it's characters you've probably seen before in other movies in terms of archetypes and personality, but honestly, they're still great, and I was surprisingly still really invested in them. Which is hard to do for an animated movie nowadays, apparently. An over the top crazy villain that reminded me of some of the best of old school Disney at times. The villain in this movie is fantastic. The female cat, like, I was cracking up and also genuinely shocked at some of the things she said and did. Like, fantastic villain. One of the best villains I've seen in an animated movie in years. Good dialogue, bit hit or miss, but the dialogue here is still pretty good. Outstanding humor, especially the slapstick and the surprising amount of adult jokes, which had me genuinely laughing. Like, this movie's funny. Like, almost 9 times out of 10 throughout this movie, I was laughing my butt off. Almost every single time they dropped a joke. Yeah, there's a few little hit or miss ones here and there that I'll get to in the cons, but most of this movie, it's genuinely hilarious. And there are a lot more adult jokes in here than I was expecting there to be, which is a really good sign that they know their audience. It kind of, honestly, bit of another weird comparison, but it kind of reminds me of Migration in that sense. Specifically, the entirety of Migration up to the terrible last half hour. Take the half hour out, I'm talking about the main part of the movie. In Migration, they had some surprisingly really good adult jokes that didn't feel forced and were genuinely funny. Here it's kind of the same deal, but in a bit of a different sense. It's really hard to explain it without going into spoilers, which I don't want to do since this review is coming out way earlier than expected, but trust me when I say this movie is really funny, and I think adults are really going to enjoy it. A fast pace that rarely ever slows down but doesn't rush anything, which is refreshing. A brisk runtime of only 90 minutes that doesn't overstay its welcome. Yeah, it's the same length as the Mario movie. Some pretty good action. Like, there's not a ton of action in this movie, but when there is action, it is genuinely good. Nods to the original comic strip that will make fans smile and reminisce. There are some pretty good Easter eggs and nods in here to the original source material. High rewatchability, and considering I'm not the biggest Garfield fan in the world, that's saying something. And surprisingly great emotional moments that landed every single time, especially Baby Garfield. I can talk about this because it was in the trailers. Baby Garfield is adorable, and almost all the scenes with him in the beginning are absolutely just precious. Like, if you thought Baby Sonic was cute, you ain't seen nothing till you seen Baby Garfield. He is absolutely adorable. Like, no offense to Baby Sonic. Baby Sonic was adorable in the first Sonic movie, yes. But here, especially considering I have a bit more attachment to this because I'm a cat person, Baby Garfield is adorable. Like, I can't say it enough, he's adorable. And a bunch of other emotional moments really landed too, but that was the big one. And since, again, it was in the trailers, I can't talk about it. But the rest of the emotional moments in the movie, they hit. Some of them are a little bit unexpected, and may or may not make you tear up a little bit. That being said, though, this movie's not perfect. There are a few things I do need to nitpick. So let's go on to the mixed aspect, and it's the same mixed aspect I had with the Mario movie. Chris Pratt. Look, Chris Pratt is a great actor when he's actually put in a good role. Like, he was surprisingly decent as Mario. He surprised me there, I'll give him that. And of course, he will always be Star-Lord. Like, Star-Lord is the role that arguably made his career. But as Garfield, it just doesn't really work. Yes, I know I pointed this out when I reviewed Mario a year ago, but once again, I just never bought him as the character in terms of his performance. It is slightly better than his performance in Mario because he does do a good job, arguably, with portraying the personality and Garfield's overall demeanor, which is why it's not a flat-out con. Because there is more effort being put in here, and it does fit a little bit better than it did with Mario. Sorry, I lost my spot. I kind of went off script. But it just felt lacking. I know that no one will ever compare to the late great Lorenzo Music's performance from the old cartoons as Garfield. Like, he is still the definitive Garfield in animation to this day. Lorenzo did an amazing job capturing pretty much anything you need from Garfield. No offense to Frank Welker. He did a decent job in that show with what he had, but Lorenzo Music, he was amazing as Garfield. And even today, rewatching some of those old cartoons, it genuinely shocks me how well he pretty much completely just blended into the role. Like, I didn't think of it like, oh, this is just some guy voice acting for a paycheck. No, it's one of those roles where you can tell it was perfect casting and they do an amazing job portraying the character. That was Lorenzo Music as Garfield, and he is still highly praised to this day, even years after his passing. May he rest in peace. But I still expected more from Pratt. Maybe that was my mistake. But he's not bad, though. Like, he's genuinely not bad. That's why it's a mixed aspect. He's not bad as Garfield, and he is a little bit better here than he was as Mario, but the performance is still just fine. It works for the scenes. I definitely think, especially in the emotional scenes, he does a really good job, but in some of the other stuff, it just doesn't really fit. Again, that might just be a me thing, but he was fine as Garfield. That's why it's a mixed and not a con, but I did expect a little bit better. Speaking of those cons, though, let's get to them because I do have a few nitpicks with this movie. There are a couple of low-hanging fruit jokes that will cause some eye rolling. It's not super prevalent, but there's a couple, like about 3 in the entire movie. So, just be aware there is a little bit of lowbrow humor. It's not to the point of being obnoxious, and it's not Marmaduke, but it's still noticeable. Some pretty egregious product placement. I'm not really going to go into depth on this one because it's technically a spoiler, but there is product placement in this movie. It's not nearly as bad as it was in the live-action Garfield movies, but there is product placement, and it is a little bit eye-rolling. What else? A third act twist that felt forced and broke the pacing for a small solitary moment. Again, I can't really go in depth on that one, but once you see the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Some pop songs that don't really fit the tone of a few scenes. Yeah, the pop songs in here, they're not bad. They're not like Mario where they were absolutely egregious and didn't fit anything, but they still don't really work. I do like the song they play in the beginning of the movie, but some of the other ones, it just doesn't really work. And the main theme, the original song they made for this movie, Let It Roll, featuring Keith Urban and Snoop Dogg, yeah, that song's terrible. That song is genuinely awful. Probably the worst part of the movie right there is that song. That song's really bad. And an ending that does drag a little bit. It's one of those endings that does feel like it's going on a little bit too long, but it's not like Return of the King. It doesn't go on for an extra hour and a half. No. But the ending does drag a little bit. But honestly, these are all just minor complaints. Overall, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I love this movie. It has its issues, but all throughout I was having an absolutely amazing time. Sure, it's silly, and it's obviously not going to be for everyone, but I can definitely see this being a huge, unexpected hit for both Sony and Columbia. With amazing animation, genuine heart, great characters, and a whole lot of laughs, this is definitely a must-see this year, especially for Garfield fans and for animation fanatics. Congrats, Sony! You finally made a great movie. It took you forever, but you finally did it. So, let's get into my final verdict for Garfield. This may or may not be controversial when it finally comes out, but from what I've seen, and from the movie that I saw, and the experience that I had, I think this movie deserves a final verdict of a Surprising, unexpected, high, 9 out of 10. Yes, a 9 out of 10. Easily one of the biggest surprises of the year, and once it's available in your theater, I very highly recommend that you go see it. Seriously, go see this movie when it comes out on the 24th. You will not regret it. Yes, I know Furiosa comes out that same day, but trust me, they should both be worth watching. I didn't get to see Furiosa early. I just got to see this one early. But definitely check out Garfield when it comes out. It is a huge surprise, and it may or may not actually make my best list. So, yeah. A very surprising review for the new Garfield movie. Go see it whenever you can. And it's a lot of fun. So, yeah. That pretty much wraps up this review. So thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Let me know your favorite memory of Garfield in the comments down below. I'd love to hear some of your memories or some of your favorite moments from the Garfield series that you can remember. And I'll see you in the next review.
We cannot take it anymore. The time has come to cut off. Prepare the fight we're ready for.